An adequate answer to that question requires 2 full days. But we'll give you as much basic understanding of the society in a 30-minute summary as we can. And for that purpose, let's start at the beginning. The John Birch Society was founded in Indianapolis on December 9, 1958. It was chartered under the general laws of Massachusetts as a non-profit educational organization. We have lived up meticulously to those specifications, including not making any profit, for 7 years. During these 7 years, we have sought to bring into the John Birch Society only men and women of good character, humane consciences, and religious ideals. For we are striving to set an example by dedication, integrity, and purpose in word and deed, which our children's children may follow without hesitation. Members of the society are of all races, colors, and creeds. We are of all social, economic, and educational levels. We are individualists who disagree among ourselves about many things, but we are firmly united in devotion to those beliefs, principles, and purposes which we do hold in common. For we have voluntarily joined together, 1, to combat more effectively the evil forces which now threaten our freedom, our lives, our country, and our civilization. 2, to prevail upon our fellow citizens to start pulling out of the deepening morass of collectivism and then climb up the mountain to higher levels of individual freedom and responsibility than man has ever achieved before. 3, to restore with brighter luster and deeper conviction the faith-inspired morality, the spiritual sense of values, and the ennobling aspirations on which our Western civilization has been built. The long-range objective of the society has been summarized as less government, more responsibility, and a better world. 2, so of course we collided with communism. For these purposes bring us immediately into conflict with the communists on 2 levels. On the ideological plane, the communists seek always and everywhere to bring about more government, less individual responsibility, and an immoral world. And on the plane of action, until the communists can be stopped from completing their subjugation of the whole world, there will be no opportunity for us to move forward at all towards our permanent goals. We have undertaken, therefore, to play a leading role in slowing down, stopping, and eventually routing the communist conspiracy. We realize that the one thing no conspiracy can withstand is the light of day on its activities. The only danger to their gigantic conspiracy which the communists fear is exposure. For this reason, we do all that we can to bring to our fellow citizens more knowledge and a better understanding of the methods, the progress, and the menace of the communist machine. In this undertaking, we have become a new form of opposition to the communists which they have never faced before in any of the vast areas they have already taken over. So the communists, grasping this fact very early, set out in 1961 to destroy us. The most official communist publication in the United States is The Worker, in which the line is laid down for the faithful. During the last 6 months of 1961, there was, we believe, only one issue of this weekly which did not contain an attack somewhere in its pages on the John Birch Society, and a number of issues contained as many as 6 or 7 separate attacks on us at that many different places. The comsimps got the point and have been carrying out the indicated program with increasing furor ever since. Of course, the communists follow Lenin's basic strategy of advancing communism by non-communist hands. They could never impose the tyrannical rule of some 3% of a population over the whole population, which they repeatedly do in one country after another, unless they could inveigle enough non-communists and even anti-communists among that other 97% into doing their dirty work for them. Deceptively appealing, for instance, to every motivation in human character, from sordid selfishness to practical politics to misguided idealism, they have gradually beguiled a lot of very good Americans into joining the attack on us, until the maligning of the John Birch Society has now probably exceeded in intensiveness and extensiveness that faced by any other organization in all American history. And in general, our defamers do not even try to refute the facts on which we focus attention. They merely call us names for bringing these facts to light. 3. Next, and in due course, we stirred up the politicians. This was inevitable, even though the John Birch Society is, in no sense, a political organization. We simply try to give our members information, understanding, and we hope even inspiration, which will make them better citizens. As good citizens, they may take an active part in politics, but each member does so entirely on his own, working in the party of his choice for the candidate of his choice, exactly as do members of the American Legion or of the Knights of Columbus or of the Rotary Club or a Baptist church. For we regard education as the means and political action as only the mechanics for bringing about improvements in government. The mechanics will automatically be used when sufficient education has prepared the way. We mean it quite literally, therefore, when we say that education is our total strategy and truth is our only weapon. Or, as made clear throughout the Blue Book and emphasized on its last page, our gigantic task is simply to create understanding. Members of the John Birch Society, however, are extremely hardworking, highly respected in their local communities, and always earnestly determined on behalf of any cause or candidate that they support. When circumstances bring any appreciable number together behind any particular candidate, their weight is out of all proportion to their numbers. And that weight is usually felt, of course, on the side of the conservatives of either party. So the liberals of both parties naturally raise all the clamor they can against Birchers in politics. As the stranglehold of the liberals on both parties now steadily increases, even conservative politicians feel unceasing pressures to improve their images by joining the chorus of attack on the John Birch Society. Very few of them indeed have ever realized the extent to which they were running interference for the communists. A related part of the mammoth and many-faceted campaign which the communists have now generated against us is the deliberate and widespread attempt to associate the John Birch Society in the public mind with the Communist Party, the Ku Klux Klan, and other so-called extremists of the left and of the right. Our approach to the problems of today is so different from the viewpoint of the clans that we have never knowingly admitted a member of any clan into the society. We estimate that about 40% of our total membership is Catholic. Many of our finest chapter leaders are Jewish, and we are very proud of our small but growing number of Negro members who are working so hard and so courageously with us to show our fellow citizens, both white and colored, how the Negroes are being used today by the communists to serve communist purposes. So we have no similarity or sympathy with the clans or with any other group that tries to divide the American people along racial or religious lines. 4. And now you may well ask, what have we accomplished? Well, first, we have established a nationwide educational army. It has a fully paid field staff. This army is fighting with facts as its only weapons. And the whole army knows that to be better informed is to be better armed. For help towards informing ourselves first and then others, we established a publishing division. It is now turning out books and magazines and pamphlets with a retail value of about $4 million per year. We also serve as very sizable distributors of the conservative books and reprints of approximately 100 other publishers. And our members now operate some 350 reading rooms that sell books scattered throughout the country, most of them under the name of American Opinion Libraries. We have certainly helped to reawaken, restore, and strengthen in tens of thousands of Americans the three great basic human loyalties: loyalty to God, loyalty to country, and loyalty to family. The communists know that they simply must destroy all three of these foundations of our civilization, for they can never rule peacefully, that is, without constant resistance, in any place or at any time where there is loyalty to anything except the communist state. We were the first organization in the United States to start calling widespread attention to the worldwide communist plot to discredit, demoralize, and destroy local police forces. Our members have distributed in leaflet form literally millions of our messages explaining what the communists were doing in this area and why. As a result, our Support Your Local Police drive has now won tremendous backing from patriotic citizens everywhere. We are engaged in an entirely proper and constitutional movement to bring about the impeachment of the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. As only one result of our educational efforts in support of that movement, we have awakened hundreds of thousands of our fellow citizens to the vital differences between a republic and a democracy. Many of them have come to realize the lengths to which our founding fathers went in order to give us a republic, not a democracy, if we could keep it. And a growing number now understand how important it is that we maintain it as a republic, despite unceasing communist efforts to the contrary. Since 1961, we have worked steadily to expose and oppose communist hands in the so-called civil rights movement. Our members have distributed huge quantities of books and articles on the subject, including nearly 500,000 copies of Alan Stang's authoritative history entitled It's Very Simple, and over 600,000 copies of the pamphlet Two Revolutions at Once, showing communist plans to make their Negro revolutionary movement, as they themselves call it, a vital part of their broader proletarian revolution of the have-nots against the haves. We have organized ad hoc committees to reveal the truth about civil turmoil, and there are more than 180 of these TACT committees in the state of California alone. Our Speakers Bureau has a number of patriotic and courageous Negro Americans telling audiences all over the United States, out of their own personal knowledge, how the communists are ruthlessly trying to use their race not at all to help the Negroes, but simply to serve communist purposes. Through these and many other extensive means and methods, we believe we have done more than all other groups in America combined to wake up the American people to what is being done to them in the name of civil rights, which is exactly what was done in China in the name and under the equally idealistic sounding pretense of agrarian reform. And while we certainly do not want to deceive ourselves or anybody else about our accomplishments, we believe we have been successful in bogging down this very strategic part of the whole communist program. More recently, we have been emphasizing the horror of wasting American lives in Vietnam in a stage-managed exhibition carried on by Washington for the political advantages of being at war and without any will to win. Our slogan, "When are we going to win this war in Vietnam and why not?" is now being repeated widely enough to drive home our point in the minds of millions of people. And our further slogan, "Why fight them in Vietnam and help them everywhere else?" is also making more and more Americans recognize the absurdity of the administration's pretense that it is really trying to stop the communists at all. The American people need to grasp the terrible fact that the same roadshow which was acted out in Korea, with communist influences controlling both sides, is now being staged at a new location with no change in the plot and little change in the team of producers. And we are doing our part to wake up our fellow citizens to the nature of this tragic and criminal deception. We are fighting effectively on many other fronts, and we have helped mightily to offset the emotional and extravagant tendencies of the prejudiced and the poorly informed to blame communism on any one group or race or organization. The historical facts clearly reveal that the international communist conspiracy reaches through every conceivable body it can utilize in any way to promote its ends. And we have insisted from the beginning that we are fighting the communists and nobody else. The fact-finding subcommittee of the California Senate ended the 25,000-word report of its 2-year investigation of the Society with these paragraphs. Quote, "We believe that the reason the John Birch Society has attracted so many members is that it simply appeared to them to be the most effective, indeed the only, organization through which they could join in a national movement to learn the truth about the communist menace and then take some positive concerted action to prevent its spread. Our investigation and study was requested by the Society, which had been publicly charged with being a secret, fascist, subversive, un-American, anti-Semitic organization. We have not found any of these accusations to be supported by the evidence." Unquote. What we have accomplished above all else is to keep the John Birch Society alive and growing as a rallying point for the increasing number of informed and patriotic anti-communists. Our members have achieved this result through staggering labor and sacrifice, despite unceasing harassments and distortions of their actions and pressures amounting in many instances to serious persecution. And we intend to keep on growing, for we believe the incredibly vicious and massive attacks on the Society have been due, in any final analysis, not to our mistakes and our failures, but to our successes and our progress. 5. So we now ask a question ourselves. Which do you choose? We cannot give you here the full basis for that choice, but let's put down a few point-by-point comparisons of the Society with its communist enemies. 1. The communists seek unlimited power for themselves over the whole human race. The John Birch Society does not want any power at all over anybody, either now or in the future. Agreeing with Lord Acton that power tends to corrupt absolute power corrupts absolutely, the society seeks to make progress towards its goals only by education and persuasion. 2, the communists believe that any means may be used to attain their ends. The society believes that improper means are never justified by even the noblest of aims, and that means are as important as ends in any worthwhile civilization. 3, the communists always accuse their enemies, such as the John Birch Society, of exactly those crimes which the communists themselves are committing. We do not bear false witness against anybody about anything. 4, the communists believe that words should be used to conceal thoughts and that promises are made to be broken. The John Birch Society believes that simple truth is the very core of morality, and that when we can persuade enough people to make truth the prerequisite to all statements and the accepted guide to all actions, at least half of the world's problems will rapidly disappear. 5, the communists operate in secrecy and darkness. We follow the preponderant custom among all American voluntary associations of not publishing the list of our members. With that exception, the John Birch Society has absolutely no secrets of any kind. 6, the communists seek to break down all morality, all tradition, and to destroy the whole spiritual and aesthetic sense of values which we have inherited. The society believes that a reverent continuity in human affairs is of extreme importance, and that even the most desirable change should be made cautiously in order to be sure that it constitutes improvement. 7, the communists believe that man is just a material combination of atoms with no other purpose than satisfaction of the desires of the physical entity thus assembled. The John Birch Society believes that a divine creator has endowed man with a purpose and an upward reach which are far superior to and frequently prompt a willing sacrifice of the desires and needs of the individual himself. 8, the communists, Lenin, Lunacharsky, many others, openly preach that men must learn to hate, and that only through spreading sufficient hatred can the communists succeed in ruling the world. The John Birch Society hates nobody, not even the communists, but only the evil which they do. The society believes that love for one's neighbor and goodwill towards all men should be a fundamental motivation in all human relationships. We have summarized the differences between the communist program and our own in the following paragraph. We must oppose secrecy with open-handedness. We must publish to the world our beliefs, our purposes, and our methods as fully as the collectivists conceal and disguise their own. We must oppose conspiracy not with counter-conspiracy, but with exposure, justice, and education. We must oppose falsehoods with truth, blasphemy with reverence, foul means with good means, immorality and amorality with more spiritual faith and dedication, rootlessness and chaos with tradition and stability, relativity with absolutes, pragmatism with deeper purposes, hedonism with a more responsible pursuit of happiness, cruelty with compassion, and hatred with love. Section 6. Finally, how do we go about these ambitious tasks? Well, the organizational mechanics of the John Birch Society are pretty well known today. So we'll make this part of our outline very brief. Most of our members belong to local chapters, usually of from about 10 to 20 members each. Each one has a chapter leader who serves without pay. Usually, for every 4 to 8 chapters, there is a section leader who is also a volunteer. Then, for anywhere from 40 to 100 chapters, we have a coordinator who is a fully paid member of our field staff. Supervising from 5 to 10 coordinators each, there is a major coordinator. Eventually, as growth and revenue make it appropriate, we shall have district governors above the major coordinators. And the top governing body of the society is our council, while I try as founder and president to keep all of this huge educational army functioning as an effective body. We also have a home chapter for those members who, for whatever reason, cannot take part in the activities of a local working chapter. Our dues in either case are $24 per year for men and $12 per year for women, payable monthly if preferred by the members of local chapters. We also offer life memberships at $1,000 each and are very proud of the many hundreds of members we now have in that category. Our dues actually pay only about 1/3 of the cost of maintaining our field staff, office services, and organizational activities. So we have to make up the remainder by contributions and revenue from many sources. Our publishing and all similar activities are carried on by an affiliated corporation controlled by the society, and which we do our utmost to have show a profit on its operations if we can. And now by this time it should be clear that the John Birch Society is no ephemeral organization of loose ties and uncertain loyalties. We are not going through a lot of pretty motions, but are building very solidly for decades to come. And we mean business every step of the way. So let's clarify a point on which we have been so widely but so unfairly criticized. For the John Birch Society is, quite frankly and by design, a monolithic body. We believe a constitutional republic to be probably the best form of government that man has yet devised. And even a republican form of non-governmental organization has many attractions and advantages under favorable conditions. But under less happy circumstances, it lends itself too readily to infiltration, distortion, and disruption. So, for withstanding the stresses and strains of internal differences and external animosities throughout changing political climates over long periods of time, for the building of morale and loyalty and the feeling of unified purpose and closely knit strength, for effective functioning in periods of crisis and a permanence of high dedication throughout more peaceful decades, for these and many other reasons, the John Birch Society operates under authoritative control at all levels. The fear of tyrannical oppression of individuals and other arguments against the authoritative structure in the form of governments have little bearing on the case of a voluntary association where anybody can resign at any time and where the authoritative power can be exercised and enforced only by persuasion. And what little validity they do have is overweighed for us by the advantages of firm and positive direction of the Society's energies, especially for the fight against communism, which is the first great task of the Society. It is imperative that all the strength we can muster be subject to smoothly functioning direction from the top. We are quite aware that no collection of debating societies is ever going to stop the communist conspiracy from taking us over, and we have had no intention of adding another frustrated group to their number. For we are not kidding ourselves nor anybody else. We really intend to stop the communists. Now, we can allow for differences of opinion, In fact, working with tens of thousands of conservative individualists, we live happily at the center of a beehive of differing opinions about everything from segregation to silver coinage, or from the teaching of Latin in public schools to the proper lengths of women's skirts. We need and welcome advice, and we get it by the ton. You ought to see our mail. And we use the normal measure of diplomacy always called for in dealing with human beings. But whenever differences of opinion are blown up into acrimonious quarrels at the local level, or get translated into a lack of loyal support for the basic purposes of the society, we have shortcuts when absolutely necessary for clearing up the trouble with as little damage to morale as possible without going through any congress of so-called democratic processes. We must have, for otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, and this is the whole point, communist infiltrators could have bogged us down in interminable disagreements, schisms, and feuds before we ever became seriously effective. In fact, it would be easy to show today from actual experiences how the John Birch Society would have been torn to pieces and virtually destroyed long before now, had it not been for this ability on our part to protect ourselves from undermining efforts of a very professional order. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, let me point out that when you join the John Birch Society and while you are a member, we are a demanding organization. We expect, and goodness knows we receive, far more work and dedication and far more sacrifice of other interests on the part of our members than you are likely ever to have given or thought of giving to any other organization outside of your church. Because we are looking for pullers at the oars and not passengers in the boat. And you do not deserve a place among what is truly the finest body of men and women in the world unless you are willing to do your share according to your circumstances and your ability. We have established fundamental and permanent objectives much broader than the fight against the communist conspiracy because we are convinced that these ultimate long-range objectives are more important than the defeat of the communist conspiracy, but also because we are utterly convinced that we cannot stop the communists unless our efforts are a part of such a broader and more constructive purpose. Yet it is the grip of the communist conspiracy which engages our attention so urgently today. Stopping the communists and destroying their conspiracy, or at least breaking its grip on our government and shattering its power within the United States, not only must occupy the most important spot in all of our thinking, it is the driving danger which should determine our thoughts today about almost everything else, and most of our actions too, for the foreseeable future. For unless we can win that battle, the war for a better world will again be carried on through long and futile dark ages. After we have been killed, our children have been enslaved, and all that we value has been destroyed. That is not rhetoric, and it is not exaggeration. It is a plain statement of the stark danger that is so rapidly closing in on us right now. And we ask you in all sincerity, ladies and gentlemen, if the John Birch Society does not play the leading role in stopping the communists, just who is there to do so? The communists pretend to believe, and some of them undoubtedly do believe, that communism is the wave of the future. We believe instead that the whole world is now tired of so much strife and bestiality, treason and immorality, cruelty and confusion, blasphemy and destructiveness, bitterness and fear, doubt and despair that always go hand in hand with communism. We believe that mankind may be about ready to arise, shake off this communist tyranny and terror, and move forward again towards a more enlightened and humane existence. We are doing everything in our power by all honorable means to create the understanding that will produce this result. If you have what it takes in character and in courage, then by all means join us now in our epic undertaking. With the added effort of people like yourself, and with God's help, when and because we have deserved it, we shall break up this immense criminal conspiracy and return a world gone crazy to sanity once again.